All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our session. We're so excited to be here with you today to talk about citizen science and pollinators. My name is Grace. I'm going to be the moderator for today. We are just waiting for more people to join us right now, and we're going to be starting at exactly 1:15. But just as people are arriving before we get started, it would be wonderful to get to know you a little bit better. So please, if you would like to introduce yourself in the chat by telling us the last animal that you saw. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you at 1:15. Okay, so it is exactly 1:15 now, so we're going to get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we are just going to start off first with a message from Mayor Gondek.
Welcome to the 33rd Annual Mayor's Environment Expo. As we come together from around the city, I would like to acknowledge that the Calgary area, where the Bow and Elbow Rivers meet, is a place of confluence, where the sharing of ideas and opportunities naturally come together. Indigenous people were the original caretakers of this land and the first champions of environmental conservation. This land is a home that we all share, and it's vitally important that we protect our home, our environment, by working together. What drives my optimism is seeing the innovation and commitment to climate action from all of you, our students. I will continue to amplify youth voices on the climate crisis, and I look forward to hearing your ideas. I hope this session sparks conversations and encourages all of us to take greater action in protecting our environment. Thank you all for participating.
Wonderful.
Welcome to the third.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor Gondek, for those important words. So my name is Grace. I'm the moderator here today. And Sherry, if you're all set, we are ready for you to start your presentation.
It is wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction, Grace. We are a we today. You have two very keen environmental voices here. My name is Sherry, and I work for Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, Southern Alberta chapter, or CPAWS, as we're known to our friends. We're an environmental organization that works all across Canada and tries to be the best Lorax we can, meaning we speak not only for the trees, but for the birds, the bees, the butterflies, and all the fun little bacteria, all those wonderful ingredients that make up ecosystems. And of course, we are stronger together, and I'd like to now hand it over to my partner, Miss Grace, to introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Sherry. So as Sherry said, my name is Grace, and I work at Green Calgary, which is an environmental charity right here in the city. And what that means is that we care a lot about our environment and all of the different ways that we can keep it healthy. So what we do is we go all over the city and get to provide education on the different ways that we can reduce our waste, use less electricity and less water, and also find other ways that we can keep the nature in our own backyard healthy. And as Sherry said, we do this together. So I absolutely love working alongside CPAWS to get to deliver sessions like this one, where we can talk to you about citizen science and all of the different amazing critters that live right here in our city. So Sherry is our presenter, so I'll pass it right back to you, Sherry. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Grace. All right. Let's step outside, shall we? Oh my goodness, I feel better already. Nature, wow, so much to take in. And on that note, I want to invite you to take this beautiful scene in. I want you to tell us what you see. And don't be shy. This is the warm-up. We want to know exactly what you're seeing, because everyone has different perspectives and everyone has different eyes. So please, we invite you to add your comments into the chat. This is our main communication function this afternoon. We're going to be together for almost an hour. So yeah, please don't be shy. How are we doing, Grace? Anything coming up? I know there is a delay, so excuse me as I get super excited and really keen to know what you all are seeing and perceiving.
We're still waiting for some of our engagement to come in through the chat here, Sherry, but I know that I'm already seeing some really interesting things in this photo. There's some really beautiful colors that we're seeing on this rock. I'm seeing a beautiful blue sky, and I'm loving the mountains that I'm seeing in the background. And let me just see here. We have someone who's already said rocks. We're seeing rocks for sure in our image. Speckled rocks, very good descriptive words. Plants.
Yes.
A rock with some orange moss type things, and trees. These are some of the answers that are coming in.
That's wonderful. Keep them coming, everyone. We want you to think about nature as a gift giver. When you think about all that she does provide, from the oxygen we breathe to the water we drink to the food we eat, there's also the gifts of beauty to consider, and the gifts of curiosity. Wow, yeah, I can't think of a better place to be curious than outside. Can you? Your amazing observations. Any others you'd like to highlight, Grace?
Ooh, let's see. A lot of moss and plants and orange flowers and leaves and trees, and someone even said a waterfall. Very good. I'm loving the color and the descriptiveness that's coming in here.
Fantastic. And just to let you guys in on a little secret, those beautiful splashes of color are lichen. And lichen are one of my favorite plants, plant organisms. They're actually a symbiotic relationship between the rock and the air, and produce oxygen, but also do an important job in decomposing whatever they're lucky enough to land on. So lichen, L-I-C-H-E-N, my favorite element of this picture. But you saw what you saw, and that's what makes this so important that we recognize is the diversity of our viewpoints, and they're all together better together. So nature makes us scientists. It evolves and allows us to observe, come up with questions, wonder why, wonder what, wonder when. And that's essentially what scientists and the professional level are all about. There's nothing like nature to make you ask questions. So today, on top of being amazing wanderers, amazing observers, Grace and I are about to give you another title. We're going to make us all together citizen scientists. It's incredible because this is something that we can all share, no matter where you come from, how old you are, what part of Calgary you live in. Today, together here, we are citizen scientists. Your curious minds is what grants you entitlement into this very pristine group of individuals. So let's explore this idea of citizen scientists. The first question that might come to your mind is, what is a citizen scientist, or what is citizen science? And it's a very lovely, simple and inclusive, again, place to be. Basically, it is a place where we look to the professional world of science, the biologists, the chemists, the physicists, the conservation scientists. They have big jobs. They have a lot of data to collect, and they can't do it all by themselves. I mean, why should they when they don't have to, when they could lean on the shoulders of all of us? We have beautiful ways of observing through our senses, as you just showed us, and it is all about togetherness and bringing these beautiful ideas, sensory observations, thoughts and curiosities to the scientific community. So basically, in a nutshell, It is citizens like you and I, like Grace, like our mayor, coming together and giving our data and our observations to scientists so that they can put those observations to work in their important professional ambitions. It gives information to government to make good decisions. It helps us make rules and laws to protect animals. It helps solve real world problems. Huge, but small. So wonderful and so inclusive. So I bet you're wondering, do you have what it takes to become a part of citizen science? I think you already know the answer by all the wonderful observations you've already given us. So I'm going to ask you to get a little active with our presentation now. I'm wondering if you could please raise your right hand if you can take pictures. So right hands in the air. All right, perfect. Thank you, Grace. I can see you and I appreciate you showing up. All right, I feel like there's a lot of right hands in the air. Next, raise your left hand, right hand down, if you can use a computer. Ooh, yeah, I see. I'm feeling a lot of left hands. All right, why don't we put our left hand down, and then I invite you to stand up if you can record information by drawing, writing, or typing. I see Grace moving back in her chair and standing up. Thank you, Grace. And I feel very much together with all of you out there that are standing in participation of this wonderful world of citizen science. There you have it, my friends. You have all that you need in order to dive into this exciting world of citizen science. And now you're all warmed up too, mind and body. So please have a seat as we jump into the tools. Now, it's very important for you to recognize that citizen science takes the tools of every day and puts them to use. I actually took this picture of all the things that I generally carry around in my backpack when I go out exploring. Most of the things are out there that are in my backpack are about self-care when I'm outside. So you'll see my sunblock, you'll see my water bottle. I definitely almost always have snacks in my backpack. My sunglasses are there. I'm curious if you're looking at this picture, I hope that you're seeing that what it takes to be a citizen scientist is not $1 million. Most of these things, I'm willing to bet, are already in your backpack, your classroom, or at home. I am so sure that many of these items are familiar with all of you and your senses and amplifying your observations, that I want to see if we can play a little game here. I want you to stare at this picture of all the things that I use for citizen science. I want you to stare so deeply. I want you to make a mental picture of all the things here, because in a moment, dun, 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 I'm going to remove one of the items. Okay, take it in, take it in. 3, 2, 1. Oh, through the magic of PowerPoint, I have removed one of the items. In the chat, my friends, can you tell us which item was removed? I know you're thinking hard. I know some of you know right off the top of your heads. I hope that you're seeing the idea of some literature and guides. Any ideas there, Grace? Anybody brave enough to say what they
are seeing? Someone said something on the backpack, but not quite sure what.
Ooh.
Oh, hold on. We have quite a few guesses here of people saying it was the apple. What do you think, Sherry?
Wonderful, and thank you so much for participating, everyone. It's a real challenge because Grace and I are so excited, and there is a delay because we are live. So forgive us as we're just like cannot wait to get your answer. And you're absolutely right. If you said The apple is missing. My favorite snack for going outside and exploring. All right, that was so much fun. Let's do it one more time. I'd like you to stare, take it in. All right, here it comes. Magically through the power, gone. What's missing? Now, I will highlight while you're typing and we are receiving that one of my favorite things to bring outside is books. I love field guides. You'll see I have a Pond Twitcher, which is a fold out, and then a big old book about Rocky Mountain birds. And then I love having a map. I love maps. They just let me explore my mind, even when I'm not on the trail. Grace, any answers?
We're still waiting for them to come in, Sherry. Let's see if we have any guesses. This one's a bit tricky. Blink and you'll miss it. Hold on. Sherry, do you think it might be the magnifying glass?
Did they get it? They got it. Woohoo! It was the magnifying glass. And you'll notice that this is not a super fancy scientific professional grade magnifier. It's from the dollar store. It's all about just allowing people to get closer and into nature. And you know what? If you don't have a magnifying glass, you've got what you were born with. And this is just a way to amplify. So use your senses. If it's your sense of smell, touch, taste, there's nothing better than a snack enjoyed outside. So on we go, my friends. Because I bet you're wondering, citizen science, it sounds so fancy and brand new. Well, it's not. I'm willing to bet some of you are thinking, I wonder how far back citizen science goes. It is true that we humans have been discovering and looking at nature since the very beginning. Indigenous people have been the stewards of our lands on Treaty 7, as the mayor so lovely put in land acknowledgement, since the beginning of time. And so curiosity and question and observation has been a part of this landscape as far back as when the glaciers retreated and the first peoples, our Indigenous peoples, came to be. The winter count here is one of the first recorded methods of taking in what is seen and writing down and showing off and making record and going forward. So this beautiful picture, actually drawn on a hide, is an example of a winter count. A winter count is a method of taking observation as a community. So the idea of community science so beautifully is represented by this particular winter count, which is Blackfoot. It was interpreted by Elder Bull Plume and missionary Canon William Hayes. And the winter count here is so fabulous. I have to tell you, just looking at my notes, that in some of the images you'll see well, I'm curious what you see. As I tell you what was interpreted, I'd love to hear your interpretations of how you would look at these pictographs and maybe what they could represent in terms of natural phenomenon happening in the Blackfoot world, dating back, they believe, into the 1800s and beyond. One element that is said to be here is that berries stayed on the trees long into winter. Another observation is that there was hail and thunder in the winter. That would be very interesting. In other years, the buffalo and the antelope got sick following an eclipse, and strong winds were recorded. Grace, any thoughts on what these images might be interpreted by our young audience?
Oh, not yet, Sherry, but what I'm seeing myself is we have a very interesting spiral that goes around. I like how we're moving through time as we're looking at this winter count. We have from a grade 3 class, they're saying that they're seeing weather on here as well. And I'm seeing lots of animals as well on this winter count.
Wonderful, perfect. some of the Indigenous knowledge from winter counts is still being used today. This is very important breakthrough science, and Indigenous science is the way to refer to it. Two-eyed seeing, the ability to take the Indigenous perspective and Western science perspectives and put them together, is by far the strongest way that we can go forward in terms of taking care of this planet. And winter counts provide a great example of a tool that we can use in understanding how climate change is impacting us today. Thanks, everybody. So tools nowadays, from a perspective of there's an app for that, are plentiful. And when it comes to citizen science, one of the most popular is one called iNaturalist. iNaturalist is everywhere. It's a global phenomenon that I'd be happy to show you. Here on my screen, you'll actually be able to see that in the world, there is over 100 million observations through this website and databank collector. Over 380,000 species has been scientifically confirmed and recorded. iNaturalist works through basically people out on the landscape making observations, taking pictures, and submitting what they see to this beautiful database. Places like Calgary are captured here. I can come up here, type in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and lo and behold, over 106,000 observations in the Calgary area, with over 3,000, almost 4,000 observers. If we dove into this deeper, you would find Grace and me here as contributors. So it is definitely citizen science at its best. There is an invitation to everyone to go out as a family or as individuals. But citizen science, as I need to keep referring, is not anything brand new. The apps maybe in the last couple of years, decade or so, but the idea of observing nature and sharing is absolutely not new. It is part of our human experience. So back to nature. In this picture, I'm willing to bet that there is someone out there, a class out there, that might notice something amazing. It's a picture I actually took while out hiking in Lake Louise. While I'm letting this filter in, I'm curious what you have to see in this picture. So yet again, let me know what you're seeing. I took this picture in August. Beautiful trail called the Plain of Six Glaciers. If you haven't done it, it's actually a trail I love because you can get up into the mountains to a place where they'll serve you a warm beverage and a bowl of soup.
That sounds
Any
like
observations?
A perfect hike, Sherry. That sounds just wonderful to me. Yes, we have some observations coming in from a couple different classes. They're saying we see a bee. We see some different kinds of leaves on the screen as well. There's a bee pollinating, even. Good descriptive words here, and flowers. Oh my goodness. And in Ave, we have a French class here too, joining us, telling us the French word for bee. This is
beautiful. Thank you. I knew you guys weren't going to leave me hanging out there by myself. I knew you were going to join in with those great observations. And yes, you got it. This is the subject that we're going to dive into right now. This bee represents the whole reason Grace and I are here today, is to talk about pollinators. Pollinators are incredibly important. A basic definition is a pollinator is an animal that causes plants to make fruit or seeds. They do this by moving pollen from one part of the flower to another. This pollen then fertilizes the plant, and it's essential because only fertilized plants can make fruit or seeds, and without them, plants could not make wonderful things like apples or beautiful vegetables. I guess this is up for debate, but cucumbers. Without bees, there would be no almonds, apples, blueberries, cherries, avocados, cucumbers, onions, grapefruit, oranges, and the list goes on and on. When it comes to pollinators, bees are often considered the superstars, the keystones, but pollinators can be many things. So I think we're going to let this video show us a little bit more of the wonderful world of pollinators.
There are lots of pollinators, and they are all special. Pollinators come in many forms, and that diversity is critical to our food supply. Pollinators include the many species of bees, beetles, butterflies, flies, hoverflies, and other insects that gather pollen from plants when they feed. Birds and bats are also involved in pollination. Together, they are responsible for the reproduction of most flowering plants, including about 30% of our food crops. Do you know what you're seeing? A bee may not be a bee. Some pollinators are hard to sort out, so here are a few tips for sorting out the bee-like ones. Is it fuzzy? Bees tend to have little hairs covering part of their bodies. Wasps, even though they are black and yellow like a bee, don't have those hairs. Bees can be black and yellow, mostly yellow, all black, bluish, even metallic green. Hoverflies look like little sweat bees, but are actually just flies. Is it hovering in place? Bees can't do that. Pollinator diversity matters. The unique features of each pollinator allows them to pollinate different types of flowers. Therefore, having diverse pollinators is important to maintaining different types of plants and crops. Native bees, like the southeastern blueberry bee and the mason bee, are some of the best and most important pollinators for agricultural production. Our nut and fruit orchards depend on them. Squash bees have such an affinity for squash flowers that they sleep in them. Bumblebees are the only pollinators strong enough to open the blooms of bottle gentian, a unique wetland plant. Many fruit species in other parts of the world depend on bats for pollination. Many orchids depend on a specific wasp or moth for pollination. Learn more about pollinator identification and how to protect them at nativeplants-and-pollinators.org.
Beautiful. Pollinators, so important. Without them, basically, Earth's ecosystem could fall apart. So when it comes to the idea of protection, I think we're all on the same page that yes, please. Now, in terms of pollinators and what they need, I'd like you to consider them as part of our world and exactly on the same plane as us. Think about it for a moment, what we need. There are 4 things, specifically water, food, shelter, and space. Now, I know you guys are up for a challenge. I'm curious, when we put all 4 of these items together, these basic needs, I'm curious what these 4 needs come together and are known as. So when we have water, food, shelter, and space, we have something that is special and can support us. And in a nutshell, that is habitat. Habitat, or as I like to refer to it, as home is very important to the health of our pollinators. In Canada, in Alberta, we have several different kinds of pollinators, as the video said, from bees to butterflies to birds. And we have lots of different ecosystems, especially in Alberta. The ecoregions support all different kinds of these creatures on the left-hand side represented. So number 1 represents our forest, our parkland. Number 2, our wetlands, and number 3, the grasslands. Now, if I were to introduce you to the wonderful rusty patch bumblebee and ask you to guess which one, number 1, number 2, number 3, which habitat serves it the best and the strongest, I'm curious what you would guess. Now, while you're guessing, I thought it might be interesting for you to learn a little bit about the rusty patch bumblebee. See, they live in colonies and they need areas to provide nectar and pollen from a variety of flowers. They need a constant supply through the spring all the way to the fall, as well as they require nesting sites underground. They will overwinter in undisturbed soil. So any guesses as to which habitat the rusty patch bumblebee might belong to, Grace?
Ooh, let's see. I think it might be based on our guesses. Number 3, Sherry?
Number 3, the grasslands. What smart citizen scientists we have out there. Absolutely correct. The next contestant in this habitat finding game is the tiger swallowtail butterfly. This beautiful butterfly requires mud puddles to soak up water because of its rich minerals. As well, they enjoy dandelions as a source of nectar, but they'll visit other flowers if they need to. Any guesses as to which habitat the swallowtail likes best?
Let me take a look here. I think based on our chat, it might be the forest and the parkland.
Oh, let's see. Absolutely bang on. Well done, everyone. And so, of course, through the power of deduction, our red-winged blackbird, who requires water in order to build its nest and does most of its hunting and family raising by the water, and cattails being its favorite area to nest in, it would honestly be the wetlands. And I'm sure most of you guessed that. Was I correct in that, Grace? Most people were on that?
Absolutely, you were, Sherry.
Perfect. Now, I'm getting a sense that there's a lot of pollinator knowledge out there. And so I think it's time to put it to the test, because we know you know a lot. So here's your first question in the chat. If you think this question is true or false, please tell us with a T for true and an F for false. Bumblebees flap their wings back and forth, not up and down. What do you think, Calgary citizen scientists? Oh, my heart is racing as we wait for this terrible delay to be over.
Still waiting here in the chat just for our answers to come in. But this is a really good question, Sherry. What do I think of when I think of a bumblebee flying? Do I think of their wings going up and down or back and forth? I'm seeing so far some trues and falses, but I think based on the chat, most people think this one might be false.
Oh, interesting. Well, I learned by doing this presentation, so I'm absolutely somebody who's just come into this knowledge. It is true. Bumblebees flap their wings back and forth in order to get their bearings and land to collect pollen. This is a back and forth motion that also works with the shape of their wings. So not up and down like the hoverfly that we saw in the video. Ooh, this is getting good. Next question. What flower colors do bumblebees like most? Now, I'll give you a little bit of intel on this. Bees can see color, absolutely. They actually have a much broader range of color vision than even us. They have the ability to see ultraviolet light, which gives them an advantage when it comes to seeing nectar. Any guesses, either 1, 2, or 3 in the chat? I'll give you a little bit of, there's actually new studies coming out with ultraviolet pictures of flowers. And when you look at them, they actually look like bullseyes. So the flowers have adapted to the bee's way of seeing. But in terms of color, I'm curious, which ones do you think are the most attractive to the bees?
Oh my goodness, what an interesting fact that is. I would like to get a good look at those ultraviolet photos and be able to see the world as our bees see the world. That's just amazing. So far, Sherry, we have a few guesses here. One class said red, orange, and pink. We have some other classes who are saying blue, violet, and purple. What might the right answer be?
Oh, drum roll. Bum. It is number 3, the blue, violet, and purple. Bees see purple as a combination of yellow and ultraviolet light. And that's a very interesting fact. And I have to add in one more fact. Bees have a far higher flicker threshold than us. And that's why honeybees have no trouble pollinating moving flowers. Have you ever wondered when flowers are moving in the wind, how the bees can even land? It's their high flicker rate of vision. So they see it as no trouble moving targets. Bring it on. So let's bring on the next question. True or false? Bumblebees live only underground.
This is a really good question, Sherry, and I think you've already given us a little bit of info on this one too. I remember you telling us a few facts about our friend the rusty patch bumblebee and where they like to live in the grasslands. So I wonder if that'll be a good hint for all of our classes who are in the chat. So let's see. So far, I'm seeing falses in the chat. What do we think?
Oh my goodness. These are very in tune citizen scientists. Bumblebees live in logs on top of the ground. Any small spaces are their favorite. That's why it's actually really great if you can leave your lawn clippings on your lawn because all those small spaces of nature building up on top of itself provide beautiful spaces for bees to get in and build community. Compost piles and abandoned animal dens are other places that they love to build. All right, true or false? Now, this is an important question. A lot of questions come up. A lot of people ask us this question. Only female bumblebees have stingers, and they only sting when they're scared or nervous. True or false? This one came to me from both of my own children and myself as a child. The whole idea of stinging and bees is a very popular topic. Any thoughts on that, citizen science out there?
Something we think a lot about too, especially right now during the spring where we're seeing a lot of bees. So far, Sherry, we're seeing in the chat a little bit of true, a little bit of false, but mostly false so far.
Well, I'm happy to say that this is true. Only female bumblebees have stingers, and they only sting when they're nervous. So the best advice on this topic is please give bees the space they need. With space, stress levels go down, even in the little creatures of the world. All right, what do bumblebees eat? Nectar and pollen, honey, other insects, or all of the above? Now this one, I know you were listening. I know you know the answer. I suspect we're going to see a flood of number How's that for an intro? Do, 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 do.
Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Still waiting here. What do I think are bumblebees? What do we think about when we think of our bumblebees going out into the world to collect food? Especially right now, I bet they're super hungry at the moment when they're waking up in the spring. So far, I am seeing a lot of number 1, Sherry, nectar and pollen. Is this the correct answer?
Yes, yes, yes. Nectar and pollen, paying attention. Thank you, Calgary citizen scientist. This is your last question. Bumblebees are covered in an oily substance that makes them waterproof. Now think about this. They have a lot of work to do, and they have a short summer to do it in. Would it make sense for them to have a raincoat?
We are waiting here for our answers. Let us see. You know, Sherry, I think this one might be true. What do you think?
It is! Isn't that marvelous? Bumblebees have their own raincoat, which, you know what? Summer is short. Take note, everybody. Get outside and wear the proper equipment, and you can be outside all year long. Now, pollinators don't have a perfect life. I bet some of you might be surprised to know that they are impacted by our way of life. And unfortunately, many pollinators are species at risk. Species at risk means that they are at risk of possibly disappearing. And this would be a tragedy when you consider all the bees that we have living in our world. Did you know that there, in this picture, represented by all the beautiful lentil beans, there are 4,000 bee species in North America? Each of the lentils represent this. Of those 4,000, 46 of them are bumblebees. And you'll actually see, if you look at the picture, the red beans represent the bumblebees. And if you look even closer, you'll see a yellow bead. That represents the honeybee. That little busy bee, that beautiful honeybee, is only one of 4,000 different bees in North America. Now here in Alberta, we have 300 bee species, which is amazing to me. How many are bumblebees? 29. Pretty good odds. But still, there is only one honeybee represented by that yellow bee. And even though there is a large diversity of bumblebees in Alberta, up to 30% of them may be on the decline. Now, why is that? For lots of reasons. Mostly due to that beautiful idea of home. Those 4 elements, if they're not all present for our bees via habitat loss, climate change, disease, and the use of pesticides, we see the number and population on the decrease. But the good news is we can help. And we can help in lots of different ways. The number one, and the reason you're here, is citizen science. So getting on an app and having a look and giving your observations to science and being part of the solution, educating others, taking this information home and having a discussion over dinner with grandma and grandpa or a guardian or your parents, siblings tonight. Plant gardens, we all know the nectar and pollen is number 1 on our bees lists. And lastly, but certainly not lastly, the last in our list is creating bee houses for shelter. You don't have to get fancy. You can use your compost pile and leaving the lawn cuttings on your lawn. So there are amazing apps out there, and this is another one actually sponsored by iNaturalist. Seek is a wonderful one. It's absolutely free. It's used on a mobile phone. It is a point, shoot, identify, and it is completely free and connects to all the wonderful resources and data of iNaturalist that we introduced you to earlier. When it comes to citizen science, there are projects en masse out there. Projects for everyone. If you're a bird lover, if you're an animal lover, if you're a bumblebee extraordinaire, passionate person, there is something out there for you as a citizen scientist. And the only thing we ask, and this is where I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand, I want you to pledge and repeat after me. Citizen scientists, I promise to go outside for the rest of my life with people I love. I heard it. We've promised it. We're gonna make it happen. Citizen scientists, we are in good company. Welcome to the team. On behalf of Green Calgary and CPAW's Southern Alberta chapter, we thank you for being here and thank you for making your promise to stand together, to collect the data, to get to know the world outside your window. And we may not have a lot of time for questions, but know that Grace is going to place in the chat how to find us and that we would love to receive any questions via our website. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sherry. That was wonderful. I loved learning more about pollinators today, and I love learning how to become a citizen scientist. And I'm sure everyone is going to join us today in getting outside and learning something new and asking lots of questions about the world around us. So yes, we are going to share with you a couple links in the chat right now about how you can learn more about CPAWS and how you can learn more about Green Calgary as well. Here we go.
I absolutely welcome you to connect with us. We are here and stronger together, as shown by our partnership between Green Calgary and CPAWS. So thank you everyone for having us. Thank you to the City of Calgary. And all of you, have a great summer. Get outside. Remember your promise.
Wonderful. I'm not seeing any questions, Sherry. Oh, hold on. I do see one right now, just at the end of our session here. Sherry, where do bees go in the wintertime?
Ooh, that's a great question. They don't live lives as long as us, unfortunately, but the queens, on the whole, are the ones that keep everything going and do the hibernating, waking up in the next year to start new colonies. So many bees, they live their beautiful life over one season, but carried on by the queen. So they hibernate and they have all those wonderful places in your lawn garden and bee homes to spend that cool winter.
Wonderful. That is an awesome answer. There's so many places that our bees can live too. I know that they like those nice log piles that we leave around all of the different nooks and crannies and in the bark as well. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sherry.
My pleasure.
All right. No other questions here today, but many thanks from all of our friends here who joined us. And we want to thank you as well. You've been wonderful. It's been awesome to be here with you, and we hope you all have an awesome day.
Enjoy the rest of your expo.